All right, buckle up, because this story is a roller coaster. So I'm sitting in my living room one evening just trying to unwind after a long day. The kids are finally asleep, and my wife, Karen, is supposedly out with her friends. You know how it is, kids, work, marriage. It's a lot to juggle. Just as I'm starting to relax, the doorbell rings. Weird, right? It's pretty late for visitors. I open the door, and there he is. Dave, Karen's so-called work colleague. I always had a bad feeling about him, but I never imagined it would come to this. Without even a greeting, Dave barges into my house, pushing me aside. He looks at me with this sinister grin and says, "If you try to stop me from sleeping with your wife, I will see to it that you are accused of molesting your children. You'll be charged with diamond theft and sent to jail." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. This guy had the nerve to threaten me in my own home. I tried to keep my cool, but my blood was boiling. Before I could react, Dave lunges at me, trying to throw a punch. Reflexively, I grabbed his hand and twisted it hard. The sound of his fingers snapping echoed through the room. I pushed him back, pulling out the gun I kept for emergencies. "All right, bastard," I said, my voice steady despite the adrenaline rush. "Now you're going to call your wife and confess everything to her." Dave's face went pale. He knew I meant business. He tried to play it cool, but I could see the fear in his eyes. He took out his phone with his good hand and dialed his wife, stammering out a confession about his affair with Karen. As I stood there, gun in hand, I couldn't help but think about how we got here. Karen and I had our ups and downs like any couple, but this was beyond anything I could have imagined. She had always been a bit secretive, and I knew she lied about small things now and then, but I never thought she'd betray me like this. Karen walked in right as Dave was finishing his call. Her eyes widened in shock as she saw him, broken and confessing. I could see the guilt and fear on her face, but also something else. Anger, maybe? Whatever it was clear this night was far from over. She started to cry, the kind of tears that seemed more for show than genuine remorse. "I'm so sorry, it was a mistake," she pleaded. But I wasn't buying it. I had heard enough lies to last a lifetime. I told Dave to get the hell out of my house and never come back. Karen tried to approach me, but I backed away. "We're not done here, Karen," I said coldly. "This is just the beginning." She looked at me, confused and scared, not knowing what to expect next. And honestly, neither did I. But one thing was clear. Things were about to get very messy. As Dave scurried out of the house, I felt a strange mix of relief and rage. This was just the start of unraveling the tangled web of lies and deceit. Little did I know, the events that would follow would be even more shocking and unexpected. After Dave left, Karen and I stood in the living room, the tension so thick you could cut it with a knife. She tried to speak, her voice trembling, but I held up my hand to stop her. "Save it," I said. "We're going to have a serious talk, but first I need to think." I went to our bedroom and locked the door. I needed to clear my head, figure out what to do next. How could she do this to me? To our kids? I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at nothing, my mind racing with thoughts of betrayal and anger. A couple of hours later, I came out to find Karen sitting on the couch, looking lost and broken. "All right," I said, sitting across from her. "Start talking. I want the truth this time, all of it." She took a deep breath and started to spill everything. The affair with Dave had been going on for months. They'd meet up during her girls' nights out, and he'd even been in our house when I wasn't around. The lies she told to cover her tracks were countless, each one more elaborate than the last. "I never meant for it to go this far," she sobbed. "I was lonely, and Dave was there, and it just happened." I couldn't believe my ears. "Lonely? I'm here every day working my ass off to provide for this family. And you repay me by sleeping with another man?" She just cried harder, not offering any real defense. I could see it now, how she'd become more distant, always glued to her phone, claiming it was work or friends. The late nights out, the sudden need for privacy, it all made sense now. "You need to leave," I said finally. "Go to your sisters or your parents. I don't care. But you can't stay here tonight." Karen looked at me, a mix of shock and desperation in her eyes. "Please, let me stay. We can work this out. Think of the kids. The kids? I snapped. You should have thought about them before you brought your lover into our home. She didn't argue anymore. She packed a bag and left, leaving me alone in the house, trying to figure out how to explain this to our children. The next morning, I told them Mommy was visiting relatives for a while, but they could see something was off. Days turned into weeks, and while Karen stayed away, I started to piece together the extent of her lies. I found secret emails and hidden messages, each one a punch to the gut. She'd lied about everything, from where she was going to who she was with. It was like our whole marriage had been one big, ugly facade. One day, while going through our financials, I discovered she'd been siphoning money from our joint account. She had lied about our expenses, padding the bills and pocketing the difference. The betrayal felt endless. In the midst of all this, I found some solace in the support of my friends and family. They rallied around me, helping with the kids and offering a listening ear. It was a small comfort in the storm of my life. Then, one evening, Karen showed up at the door, looking haggard and desperate. "I need to talk to you," she said. I let her in, more curious than anything else. "What now?" I asked, not bothering to hide my disdain. "I'm pregnant," she blurted out, tears streaming down her face. The room spun. This was the last thing I expected. "Is it mine?" I managed to ask, my voice barely above a whisper. She nodded, sobbing uncontrollably. "Yes, it's yours. I haven't been with Dave since that night. I swear." I didn't know what to believe anymore. Every word out of her mouth felt like another lie, but if she was telling the truth, this complicated everything even further. As she cried, I felt a mix of emotions: anger, sadness, confusion. What was I supposed to do now? The road ahead seemed more uncertain than ever, and I wasn't sure if I was ready for what was coming next. Karen's revelation about the pregnancy hit me like a ton of bricks. Just when I thought I was getting a handle on things, life threw another curveball. I spent that night tossing and turning, my mind racing with possibilities and what-ifs. The next morning, I decided I needed more answers. "We need to get a paternity test," I told Karen when she called to ask about the kids. There was a long pause on the other end of the line. "Okay," she finally agreed. "Whatever it takes to prove to you that I'm telling the truth." We scheduled the test for the following week, and during that time, Karen moved back in, but things were far from normal. We barely spoke except for matters related to the kids. The tension in the house was unbearable. One evening, after putting the kids to bed, I sat Karen down. "I need to know everything," I said. "No more lies, no more half-truths. If there's any chance of us figuring this out, I need the whole story." Karen looked defeated but started talking. She admitted to more lies about her job, her friends, even her family. She confessed that her girls' nights out were often spent with Dave, and that she had been contemplating leaving me for him at one point. "But why?" I asked, feeling a mix of anger and heartbreak. "What did I do to make you want to destroy our family?" "It wasn't you," she said quietly. "It was me. I felt trapped, and Dave made me feel free. I know it sounds stupid, but that's the truth." Her words stung, but they also made me realize something. Karen was never satisfied with our life. She always wanted more excitement, more attention, more everything. And Dave was just the latest symptom of that. As the days passed, the results of the paternity test loomed over us like a dark cloud. I kept myself busy with work and the kids, but the thought was always there, gnawing at me. Finally, the day came. I picked up the envelope with trembling hands, Karen standing beside me. We opened it together, and I scanned the results. The baby was mine. A wave of relief washed over me, but it was quickly replaced by a sense of dread. What now? Karen burst into tears, hugging me tightly. "We can make this work," she sobbed. "We can be a family again." But could we? Trust had been shattered, and even though the baby was mine, the betrayal still loomed large. I pushed her away gently. "This doesn't change what you did," I said. "We have a lot to work through, and I don't know if I can ever trust you again." The weeks that followed were a roller coaster of emotions. Karen tried her best to mend things, but the lies and deceit had left deep scars. Our interactions were strained, filled with awkward silences and forced conversations. One day I came home to find Karen in tears, clutching her phone. "What's wrong?" I asked, concerned despite everything. "It's Dave," she said, her voice shaking. "He's been arrested for embezzlement at work. They found out he was stealing from the company." This was unexpected. Dave's threats about accusing me of diamond theft suddenly made more sense. He was projecting his own crimes onto me. I felt a strange sense of vindication, but also a twinge of fear. What else was going to come out? Karen was a wreck, and I couldn't help but feel a bit of sympathy. She had put herself in this situation, but the fallout was affecting all of us. I decided it was time for a serious talk. "We need to make some decisions," I said one evening. "About us, about the kids, about everything." Karen nodded, wiping her tears. "I know," she said. "I'm willing to do whatever it takes to fix this." We talked for hours, laying everything out on the table. We agreed to start couples therapy, to try and rebuild some semblance of trust. But I made it clear that this was her last chance. Any more lies, and it was over. As we navigated this new, uncertain path, I couldn't shake the feeling that more surprises were in store. Life had become a series of unexpected events, and I wasn't sure if we'd ever find our way back to normal. But for the sake of our kids, and for the small glimmer of love that still remained, I was willing to try. Couples therapy was awkward at first. We sat in a small, dimly lit office with a therapist named Dr. Johnson guiding us through the murky waters of our fractured relationship. Karen seemed genuinely remorseful, but I struggled to believe her. The wounds were too fresh, the lies too numerous. One day during a particularly tense session, Dr. Johnson asked us to write down our biggest fears about the relationship. Karen went first, her voice shaking. "I'm afraid that I've destroyed everything, and that you'll never forgive me," she said, tears streaming down her face. When it was my turn, I took a deep breath. "I'm afraid that no matter how hard we try, I'll never be able to trust you again," I admitted, "and that you'll continue to lie to me." The room was silent for a moment as we absorbed each other's words. Dr. Johnson nodded thoughtfully. "Trust is the foundation of any relationship," she said. "Rebuilding it will take time and effort from both of you." Outside of therapy, life continued to throw us curveballs. Dave's arrest had sent shockwaves through Karen's workplace. Gossip spread like wildfire, and she found herself ostracized by many of her colleagues. The stress took its toll on her, and she lost her job a few weeks later. She was a mess, and our fragile attempts at reconciliation were constantly tested. One evening, as we were putting the kids to bed, Karen received a call from her sister, Emily. She stepped outside to take it, but I could hear snippets of their conversation through the open window. "No, I haven't told him everything yet," Karen said, her voice hushed. My heart sank. What else was she hiding? When she came back inside, I confronted her. "What haven't you told me?" I demanded. Karen looked like a deer caught in headlights. "It's nothing," she stammered. "Just some stuff about work." But I knew better. "Don't lie to me, Karen. Not again. If there's something I need to know, you better tell me now." She broke down, tears streaming down her face. "There's more," she confessed. "About Dave and some money issues." My heart pounded in my chest. "What money issues?" She took a deep breath. "Dave convinced me to invest in this scheme he was running at work. He promised huge returns, and I took money from our savings. I'm so sorry. I thought it would help us, but now it's all gone." I was livid. "You took our savings and gave them to him? Without telling me?" She nodded, sobbing uncontrollably. "I was stupid and desperate. I wanted to fix everything, but I only made it worse." The betrayal cut deep. Our savings were supposed to be for our future, for the kids, and now it was all gone because of her lies and poor judgment. I didn't know if I could handle any more of this. That night, I slept on the couch, my mind racing. I felt trapped in a nightmare with no end in sight. The next morning, I called my lawyer. "I need to know what my options are," I said. "I don't think I can do this anymore." He laid out the possibilities: divorce, separation, custody arrangements. It all felt overwhelming, but I knew I had to protect myself and the kids. Karen's actions had shown that she couldn't be trusted, and I needed to start thinking about what was best for us. When Karen found out I had talked to a lawyer, she was devastated. "Please, don't give up on us," she pleaded. "I know I've messed up, but I'm willing to do whatever it takes to make things right." I sighed, feeling the weight of the world on my shoulders. "You keep saying that, but your actions keep proving otherwise. How am I supposed to believe you this time?" She didn't have an answer, just more tears and apologies. I decided to give it one last shot, not for her, but for the kids. They deserved a stable home, and I wasn't ready to tear it apart just yet. In the weeks that followed, we focused on rebuilding our lives. Karen found a new job, and we started slowly replenishing our savings. Therapy continued, and while it was still challenging, we began to make some progress. But the shadow of the past loomed large, and I couldn't shake the feeling that something else was waiting to be uncovered. One day, while cleaning out the attic, I stumbled across an old box of Karen's things. Inside, I found letters and photos from years ago, evidence of a previous affair she had never mentioned. It felt like a punch to the gut. She had lied to me for so long, about so many things. When I confronted her, she broke down again. "It was before we got married," she admitted. "I thought I could move past it, that it wouldn't matter once we were together, but it seems like I've just been lying to myself and to you." This revelation was the final straw. I couldn't keep living in this web of deceit. "I'm done, Karen," I said, my voice cold and resolute. "I can't do this anymore." She begged and pleaded, but my mind was made up. I contacted my lawyer and started the divorce proceedings. It was time to end this toxic cycle and start fresh, for my sake and for the kids. As I signed the papers, I felt a strange sense of relief. The road ahead would be tough, but it was a chance for a new beginning, a chance to rebuild my life on a foundation of truth and trust, and to give my kids the stable, honest home they deserved. Divorce proceedings are never easy, but when they involve lies, betrayal, and the well-being of children, they become even more complicated. The weeks following my decision to end things with Karen were a whirlwind of lawyers, paperwork, and emotional turmoil. Each day brought new challenges, and I often found myself questioning if I was doing the right thing. Karen moved in with her sister, Emily, and our interactions were reduced to brief exchanges about the kids and legal matters. Despite everything, I wanted to keep things as amicable as possible for the sake of our children. They deserved stability, even if their parents couldn't provide it together. One evening, after tucking the kids into bed, I received a text from Karen. "Can we talk? Just for a little bit?" I was hesitant, but agreed to meet her at a nearby coffee shop. Part of me hoped she had finally accepted the reality of our situation and was ready to discuss how we could move forward separately but cooperatively. When I arrived, Karen was already there, looking anxious and exhausted. "Thanks for coming," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I nodded, sitting across from her. "What's this about, Karen?" She took a deep breath. "I know I've lost your trust, and I understand why you're doing this. But I want you to know that I'm committed to being a better person and a better mother. I've started seeing a therapist on my own, and I'm working through my issues." Her words sounded sincere, but I had heard too many promises from her to take them at face value. "That's good to hear," I said cautiously. "But you need to understand that this doesn't change anything. We're still getting divorced." Karen nodded, tears welling up in her eyes. "I know. I just want to make sure we can co-parent effectively and give the kids the best life possible." "I want that too," I replied. "But it's going to take time to rebuild any semblance of trust. Right now, my focus is on the kids and making sure they're okay." As we talked, I realized that despite everything, I still cared about Karen. Not in the same way I once did, but enough to want her to get better. She had made a mess of our lives, but if she could turn things around for the sake of our children, then maybe some good could come out of this ordeal. In the weeks that followed, we worked on creating a co-parenting plan with the help of our lawyers. It was tough, and there were plenty of disagreements, but we both knew it was necessary. Our kids needed us to be on the same page, even if we couldn't be together. One day, while picking up the kids from Karen's sister's house, Emily pulled me aside. "I just wanted to say that I'm really sorry for everything that's happened," she said. "Karen's been a mess, but she's really trying to change." I appreciated her words, but I wasn't ready to forgive and forget. "Thanks, Emily. I hope she does change, for her own sake and for the kids." As time went on, I started to find a new sense of normalcy. I focused on my work, spent quality time with the kids, and leaned on my friends and family for support. The wounds from Karen's betrayal were still there, but they began to heal slowly. One night, after putting the kids to bed, I received a call from my lawyer. "We've finalized the divorce papers," he said. "All that's left is for you and Karen to sign them." It was a bittersweet moment. The end of our marriage was officially in sight, but so was the beginning of a new chapter. I met Karen the next day at our lawyer's office, and we signed the papers in silence. There were no dramatic outbursts, just a quiet acceptance of what had to be done. As I walked out of the office, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. The past few months had been a nightmare, but I was finally free to move forward. Karen and I would always be connected through our children, but I was determined to build a better, more honest life for myself and them. In the months that followed, I continued to work on myself, focusing on being the best father I could be. Karen seemed to be making genuine progress in therapy, and our co-parenting arrangement became more stable. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start. Life had thrown me some unexpected and painful twists, but I had survived. And now, with the worst behind me, I looked forward to a future where I could finally find peace and happiness again. With the divorce finalized, I started to focus on rebuilding my life. It wasn't easy. Every corner of the house seemed to hold a memory of Karen and our shattered marriage. But I was determined to create a new life for myself and my kids, one that was free from lies and betrayal. One of the first steps I took was redecorating the house. I wanted to turn it into a space that felt like mine, not ours. I painted the walls, bought new furniture, and even rearranged the layout of the living room. It was therapeutic in a way, like I was cleansing the space of all the bad energy. The kids adapted surprisingly well to the changes. They were young enough to bounce back quickly, and I made sure to keep their routines as stable as possible. I took them to the park, helped them with their homework, and spent quality time with them every weekend. They were my anchor through all of this, and I was determined to be the best father I could be. Karen and I continued to co-parent as amicably as possible. Our communication improved, mostly out of necessity, but there were still moments of tension. She was making progress in therapy, and while I could see the changes in her, I still struggled with trust. One day, out of the blue, I received a call from an old friend, Mark. We hadn't spoken in years, but he had heard about my situation and wanted to check in on me. "Hey man, how are you holding up?" he asked. "Better," I said honestly. "It's been tough, but I'm getting through it." We decided to meet up for a drink, and it felt great to catch up with someone who knew me before all the chaos. Mark had always been a good friend, and talking to him reminded me that there were still people in my life who cared about me. As the weeks went by, I started to feel a sense of normalcy returning. The kids were happy, I was reconnecting with old friends, and my job was going well. It wasn't the life I had envisioned, but it was a life I could be proud of. One evening, after putting the kids to bed, I sat down with a glass of whiskey and reflected on everything that had happened. I realized that despite the pain and betrayal, I had come out stronger. I had learned to prioritize myself and my well-being, something I hadn't done in years. Just as I was starting to feel a sense of peace, there was a knock at the door. It was Karen. She looked anxious, and I couldn't help but feel a pang of irritation. "What's going on?" I asked, trying to keep my voice calm. "I need to talk to you," she said, stepping inside. "It's important." I sighed, gesturing for her to sit down. "All right, what is it?" Karen took a deep breath. "I've been doing a lot of thinking and working through things in therapy. I know I've hurt you deeply and I don't expect you to forgive me, but I want to apologize again, sincerely, for everything. I nodded, waiting for her to continue. And I've decided to move away, she said. I've found a job in another city, and I think it would be best for everyone if I started fresh somewhere else. I was stunned. You're leaving? I asked, struggling to process her words. She nodded. Yes. I'll still be involved in the kids' lives, of course. We'll work out visitation and everything. But I think it's time for me to give you and the kids some space, and for me to find my own path. I didn't know how to feel. Part of me was relieved, but another part of me was sad for the kids. They had already been through so much. Are you sure this is what you want? I asked. Yes, she said firmly. I think it's the best thing for all of us. We spent the next few weeks working out the details. Karen's departure was bittersweet, but I knew it was the right decision. She needed to find her own way, and I needed to continue rebuilding my life without the constant reminder of our failed marriage. The day she left was emotional. The kids didn't fully understand what was happening, but I reassured them that they would still see their mom and that everything would be okay. As Karen drove away, I felt a mix of emotions: relief, sadness, and a glimmer of hope for the future. With Karen gone, I focused even more on my kids and my own well-being. I started dating again, cautiously at first. It was strange to open myself up to someone new after everything that had happened, but it was also exciting. I met a woman named Sarah, and we clicked immediately. She was kind, understanding, and had her own story of heartbreak, which made her even more relatable. We took things slow, but I could feel myself healing with each passing day. My trust in others was gradually being restored, and I started to see a future that wasn't tainted by the past. Life had thrown some serious curveballs my way, but I had managed to come out the other side stronger and more resilient. The journey was far from over, but I was ready to face whatever came next with an open heart and a renewed sense of hope. As the months went by, life gradually settled into a new routine. Karen had moved away, and our arrangement for the kids was working out better than I had anticipated. She visited them regularly, and we managed to maintain a cordial relationship for their sake. Sarah and I continued to see each other, and our connection grew deeper. She was a breath of fresh air, a stark contrast to the chaos and deception that had defined my previous relationship. We spent time together exploring the city, having quiet dinners at home, and even taking the kids out for fun activities. The kids took to Sarah quickly, and it warmed my heart to see them so happy. One weekend, Sarah suggested a trip to the beach. It sounded like the perfect escape, so we packed up the kids and headed out. The sun was shining, the waves were gentle, and for the first time in a long while I felt genuinely at peace. As we set up our spot on the sand, I watched Sarah play with the kids. They were laughing, building sandcastles, and splashing in the surf. It was a simple, beautiful moment that made me realize how far I had come. The past still lingered, but it no longer defined me. Later that evening, after the kids had fallen asleep, Sarah and I sat on the porch of our beach rental, sipping wine and listening to the waves. She looked at me with those warm, understanding eyes and said, "You seem different, happier." I nodded, feeling the truth of her words. "I am. I didn't think I could get to this point, but here we are." She smiled and took my hand. "You deserve this happiness, you know. After everything you've been through, it's your time to heal and be happy." I squeezed her hand, feeling a swell of gratitude. "Thank you, Sarah, for being here, for being you." Our relationship continued to blossom, and we became more integrated into each other's lives. I introduced her to my close friends, and she did the same. It felt like we were building something real, something strong and lasting. One evening, as we were having dinner at my place, Sarah brought up a topic we had danced around for a while. "I've been thinking," she said, her tone serious yet gentle, "about the future, about us." I put down my fork, meeting her gaze. "I have too," I admitted. "What do you see for us?" She took a deep breath. "I see us together, blending our lives more. I know it's still early and there's a lot to consider, but I want us to move forward. Maybe even move in together? Her words caught me off guard, but in a good way. I hadn't realized how much I wanted the same thing until she said it. I'd like that, I replied. I think we're ready for that step. We spent the next few weeks planning the move. Sarah and her daughter Lily joined us, and our house became a bustling, lively home filled with laughter and love. The kids adjusted well, and it felt like we were creating a new, blended family. Of course, there were challenges. Navigating co-parenting with Karen, ensuring the kids felt secure, and balancing our time was a constant effort. But with Sarah by my side, everything felt more manageable. One evening, after the kids were asleep, Sarah and I sat down with a bottle of wine. "There's something I want to talk to you about," she said, her voice tinged with nervousness. "What is it?" I asked, curious and slightly concerned. She took a deep breath. "I've been thinking about our future, about making it more official. I know it's a big step, but I wanted to see how you feel about it." My heart skipped a beat. "Are you talking about marriage?" She nodded, her eyes searching mine for a reaction. I took her hands in mine, feeling a wave of emotion. "Sarah, I love you. And I love the life we're building together. Yes, I want to marry you. When the time is right, I want us to take that step." Tears filled her eyes, and she leaned in to kiss me. "I love you too," she whispered. "I'm so happy we found each other." From that moment, our bond grew even stronger. We started planning for the future, talking about our dreams and how we could make them a reality. Life wasn't perfect, but it was filled with love, hope, and the promise of a better tomorrow. As we stood on the cusp of this new chapter, I felt a profound sense of gratitude. The journey had been long and painful, but it had led me to a place of true happiness. And with Sarah by my side, I was ready to embrace whatever the future held. Life was good. Sarah and I were planning our future together. The kids were happy, and we were all adjusting well to our blended family. It felt like everything was finally falling into place. But as I had learned, life has a way of throwing unexpected challenges our way. One Friday evening, just as we were about to sit down for dinner, my phone rang. It was Karen. We had managed to keep our interactions civil and focused on the kids, but this call felt different. I could hear the urgency in her voice. "Hey, Karen, what's up?" I asked, trying to keep my tone neutral. "I need to talk to you," she said, her voice shaky. "It's about the kids." My heart sank. "Are they okay?" "Yes, they're fine. But there's something I need to tell you. Can we meet tomorrow?" I agreed, feeling a knot of anxiety forming in my stomach. The next morning, I met Karen at a coffee shop near her place. She looked tired and worried, a stark contrast to the confident woman I had known. "What's going on, Karen?" I asked, sitting down across from her. She took a deep breath. "I've been diagnosed with breast cancer." The words hit me like a freight train. I stared at her, trying to process what she had just said. "Cancer?" I managed to say, my voice barely above a whisper. She nodded, tears welling up in her eyes. "I found out a couple of weeks ago. They caught it early, but I'll need surgery and possibly chemotherapy." I felt a mix of emotions: shock, sadness, fear. Despite everything that had happened between us, I didn't want her to suffer, and the thought of the kids losing their mother was unbearable. "What do you need from me?" I asked, trying to stay calm. "I'm going to need help with the kids during my treatment," she said, her voice trembling. "I know we've had our issues, but I need to focus on getting better. Can you take care of them more often? Maybe even full-time for a while?" I nodded. "Of course, Karen. Whatever you need. The kids are my priority." She looked relieved, and for the first time in a long while, I saw a flicker of gratitude in her eyes. "Thank you. I'm so scared, and I don't want them to see me like this." We talked for a while longer, discussing the logistics of her treatment and how we would handle the kids. When I left the coffee shop, I felt a weight on my shoulders, but also a sense of resolve. This was going to be a difficult journey, but I was determined to support Karen and make sure our kids were taken care of. That evening, I sat down with Sarah and told her the news. She listened quietly, her expression one of concern and empathy. "We'll get through this together," she said, taking my hand. "The kids need us, and so does Karen." The next few weeks were a whirlwind of adjustments. Karen underwent surgery, and the kids moved in with us full-time. It was a big change, but Sarah and I worked hard to keep things as normal as possible for them. We juggled work, school, and household responsibilities, all while making sure the kids felt loved and supported. Karen's recovery was slow, and the chemotherapy took a toll on her. She lost her hair and often felt weak and nauseous, but she fought through it with a strength I hadn't seen in her before. Our interactions became more frequent, and slowly a new kind of trust began to form between us. It wasn't the trust of a romantic relationship, but the trust of two people committed to doing what was best for their children. One evening, after a particularly tough day, Sarah and I sat on the couch, exhausted. "I never thought we'd be here," I said, leaning my head against her shoulder. "I know," she replied softly, "but you're doing an amazing job. The kids are happy, and Karen is getting the support she needs." I looked at her, feeling a surge of gratitude. "I couldn't do this without you, Sarah. You've been my rock through all of this." She smiled and kissed me. "We're a team, and we'll get through this, no matter what." As the months passed, Karen's health slowly improved. The kids settled into their new routine, and our family found a new rhythm. There were still challenges, but we faced them together, with love and determination. One afternoon, while we were all at the park, Karen called. Her voice was stronger, more hopeful. "I just got back from the doctor," she said. "The latest tests show no signs of cancer. I'm in remission." Tears filled my eyes. "That's incredible news, Karen. I'm so happy for you." "Thank you," she said, her voice choked with emotion. "I couldn't have done this without you and Sarah. Thank you for taking care of the kids and for supporting me." "We're all in this together," I replied. "That's what family is for." As I watched the kids play, I felt a deep sense of gratitude. Life had thrown us many challenges, but we had faced them head-on and come out stronger. The road ahead was still uncertain, but I knew that with Sarah by my side and our family united, we could handle anything that came our way. Karen's remission brought a wave of relief and a new set of challenges. With her health improving, it was time to discuss the future and how we would manage our co-parenting arrangement moving forward. While I was relieved she was better, I couldn't help but feel apprehensive about the changes this would bring. One evening, Sarah and I sat down to talk about our next steps. "Karen's getting better," I said. "We need to figure out how to transition the kids back to her part-time. It's going to be a big change for them." Sarah nodded, her expression thoughtful. "It's important for the kids to see their mom healthy and strong. We need to make this as smooth as possible for them." We decided to have a meeting with Karen to discuss the details. When we all sat down together, Karen looked much healthier, her hair beginning to grow back, and a spark of life returning to her eyes. "I'm so grateful for everything you've done," Karen said, her voice filled with sincerity. "I know this hasn't been easy, but you've both been amazing." "We're just glad you're better," I replied. "But we need to talk about the kids and how we're going to handle this transition." Karen agreed, and we spent the next few hours hashing out a plan. The kids would start spending weekends with her, gradually increasing their time as everyone adjusted. It was important to keep their routines stable and make sure they felt secure during this transition. The first weekend the kids spent with Karen was bittersweet. Sarah and I had grown accustomed to having them around all the time, and the house felt oddly quiet without their laughter and chatter. We decided to make the most of the alone time, enjoying a quiet dinner and a movie night at home. "This feels strange," I admitted as we settled on the couch. "I'm so used to the chaos." Sarah laughed, snuggling up beside me. "I know what you mean, but it's good for us to have some time together too. We need to make sure we're taking care of our relationship." She was right. Amidst all the changes and challenges, it was important to nurture our bond and ensure we remained strong as a couple. We spent the evening talking about our dreams for the future, planning trips we wanted to take, and imagining the life we were building together. As the weeks went by, the new arrangement began to settle into place. The kids adapted well, enjoying their time with both parents. Karen and I maintained open communication, working together to make sure the kids felt loved and supported. It wasn't always easy, but we were committed to making it work. One sunny Saturday, while the kids were with Karen, Sarah and I decided to take a hike. We drove to a nearby trail, enjoying the fresh air and the beauty of nature. It felt good to be outdoors, away from the hustle and bustle of daily life. As we reached the summit, we sat down to take in the view. "I can't believe how far we've come," I said, looking out over the landscape. "A year ago, I didn't think I'd ever find happiness again." Sarah took my hand, her eyes filled with love. "You deserve this, and so much more. We've built something beautiful together, and there's so much to look forward to." We spent the afternoon hiking and talking, dreaming about our future and the life we wanted to create. It was a perfect day, a reminder of how far I had come and the new beginnings that lay ahead. Back at home that evening, we received a call from Karen. She sounded cheerful, updating us on how the weekend was going. The kids had been happy and energetic, and it was clear that they were thriving in this new arrangement. "I'm so glad we're making this work," Karen said. "The kids seem really happy, and I feel like we're finally finding a good balance." "Me too," I agreed. "It's been a journey, but I think we're on the right track." As I hung up the phone, I felt a sense of peace. The road had been long and difficult, but we had found a way to navigate through the storm. The kids were happy, Karen was healthy, and Sarah and I were building a future filled with love and hope. That night, as I lay in bed beside Sarah, I couldn't help but reflect on everything that had happened. Life had thrown us some incredible challenges, but we had faced them head-on and emerged stronger. The future was bright, and I was ready to embrace it with open arms. The journey was far from over, but with the support of those I loved, I knew I could handle whatever came next. We had created a new normal, one built on trust, love, and resilience. And for the first time in a long while, I felt truly content. A year passed since Karen's remission, and our new co-parenting routine had settled into place. The kids were thriving, and Sarah and I had grown even closer. Life felt stable, happy, and full of promise. One sunny afternoon, we decided to take the kids to the zoo. It was a perfect day. Clear skies, warm weather, and the kids were excited to see the animals. As we strolled through the exhibits, I watched Sarah interact with the kids. She was a natural, and it warmed my heart to see how much they loved her. "Look, Dad! Giraffes!" My youngest Tommy shouted, pointing excitedly. I smiled and lifted him up so he could get a better view. "Yeah, buddy, they're amazing, aren't they?" Sarah took my hand, and we walked together, enjoying the day as a family. It felt right, like this was exactly where we were meant to be. As the day came to an end, we headed home, tired but happy. That evening, after the kids were in bed, Sarah and I sat on the porch, watching the stars. She leaned her head on my shoulder. "Today was perfect," she said softly. I nodded, feeling a deep sense of contentment. It really was. I'm so grateful for everything we have. She lifted her head and looked at me, her eyes shining with love. "There's something I've been wanting to ask you," she said, her voice trembling slightly. My heart skipped a beat. "What is it?" She took a deep breath and reached into her pocket, pulling out a small box. "I know it's not traditional for the woman to propose, but I can't wait any longer. I love you, and I love the life we're building together. Will you marry me?" Tears filled my eyes as I looked at the ring she held out to me. It was simple, elegant, and perfect. I took the box, feeling overwhelmed with emotion. "Yes," I said, my voice choked with tears. "Yes, I'll marry you." We embraced, holding each other tightly. It felt like the culmination of everything we had been through, a promise of a bright future together. The next few months were a whirlwind of wedding planning. The kids were thrilled, and even Karen was supportive, offering to help with the arrangements. It felt like a new chapter was beginning, one filled with hope and happiness. On the day of the wedding, the weather was perfect. We held the ceremony in a beautiful garden, surrounded by friends and family. As I stood at the altar watching Sarah walk down the aisle, I felt a surge of joy and gratitude. When she reached me, we took each other's hands and exchanged vows. "I promise to love you, support you, and cherish every moment we have together," I said, my voice steady and full of conviction. Sarah smiled, tears in her eyes. "And I promise to stand by you through all of life's challenges, to love you unconditionally, and to build a beautiful future together." With those words, we sealed our commitment to each other. As we exchanged rings, I felt a profound sense of peace. This was the beginning of our forever. The reception was a joyous celebration. The kids danced and played, and our friends and family toasted to our happiness. Karen even gave a heartfelt speech, expressing her gratitude for the way we had all come together for the sake of the kids. "I'm so happy to see you both find happiness," she said, her voice filled with emotion. "You deserve all the love and joy in the world." As the night went on, Sarah and I shared our first dance as husband and wife. It was a moment of pure bliss, a symbol of everything we had overcome and the love that had brought us together. Life continued to move forward, filled with laughter, love, and the occasional challenge. But no matter what came our way, I knew we could face it together. We had built a strong foundation, one based on trust, resilience, and a deep, abiding love. Looking back on the journey, I realized how far I had come. From the depths of betrayal and heartbreak to the heights of love and happiness, life had been a roller coaster. But it was a ride worth taking. With Sarah by my side, I felt ready to embrace the future, whatever it held. Our love had been tested and had come out stronger. And now, as we looked forward to the years ahead, I knew that the best was yet to come.